You go back to 1970 when this all first started. Dr. Cowie had a vision. We were the pioneers in doing this. Since 1970, we have flown over 140,000 medevac patients, and we continue to be pioneers. We are already on the forefront of bringing this new aircraft out. We anticipate the transition to be complete by the fall of 2014. There was a delay in receiving the aircraft. Basically, there were modifications made to the medical interior and to the TRACA, which is the spotlight on the aircraft. And in order to get that approved, it had to go through two entities. First being what they call EASA, which is the European Aviation Safety Agency, because the aircraft manufacturer is out of Europe. And then once it was approved by EASA, it had to come to the FAA, and we had to get approval from the FAA. Once it was approved, we did finally receive the aircraft in the beginning of 2013. The FAA came out with what they call a final rule on helicopter operations throughout the United States, specifically as it's germane to how we do it with air ambulances. Basically, they wanted improved safety, improved communications, training, and additional onboard safety equipment. Now, everyone operating helicopters in the United States have to abide by these rules. The good news is that Maryland State Police is way ahead of the curve. We had the wherewithal back in 2008 to procure an aircraft that the FAA is now requiring that you have certain safety features on board, that you follow what they call weather minimums, safety procedures, pre-flight checks, and analysis. We're ahead of the game, and we're really pleased with that. As we're transitioning, we'll have some sections in Dolphins and some in the AW-139 until all the sections are transitioned. We started at the Frederick section, we went over to the Easton Trooper 6, we then moved to Salisbury Trooper 4, and we're currently at Southern Maryland Trooper 7. All 7 sections will be operational 24/7 in the new AW-139. In the military, when they introduce a new aircraft or airframe, they close a complete squadron down. We don't have that luxury. We have to provide services to the citizens 24/7. So we have to maintain a dual fleet. We have to keep all sections available to the citizens to have coverage throughout the state. And in doing so, it requires maintenance. So some people will ask, why are we spending money when we have these brand new helicopters? We need to be able to have all sections operational, and we can't just put new helicopters at each section. We have to transition, and it's a process. Once the transition is completed, we will be turning over the Dolphins to the Department of General Services, who will then put the Dolphins up for sale. Now, we testified last year at the General Assembly that we would take up to 24 months to do this transition. We're way ahead of schedule. Just to put that into perspective, the last time we went through a transition, it took up to 5 years, and that was back in the late 80s, early 90s, to transition from the Bell helicopter to the Dolphin. We can only transition one section at a time. And during that time, I mean, you got pilot training, you got medic training, you got maintenance techs that are required to train and learn the new aircraft. So each section has to go through that process. It's about safety. Safety is priority in this command. It should be priority in anybody that's operating helicopters. You got to go through a process to make sure everyone is at minimum competent to the minimum standards, but we hope to exceed those standards. The FAA does not mandate that we fly this aircraft with 2 pilots. We elected to do that, again, because of safety concerns. This new aircraft has what they call a glass cockpit. If we chose to fly this aircraft with 1 pilot, we could have done it, just following the guidance of the FAA. But instead, we looked at it, gained the operational experience, and realized that you really should do this with 2 pilots. It's a safer way to operate the aircraft. It is something that everyone that's flying the new AW-139s do. So we made that conscious decision that it was best to fly with 2 pilots. There's been questions of whether we should have refurbished the Dolphin fleet. To refurbish a Dolphin aircraft, it would have cost us close to $150 million to refurbish an aircraft to the standards that we wanted, and it would only had 80% of the requirements that were recommended. So if you look at it in that sense, we actually saved money by buying new and getting the latest safety enhancements. We're always looking to keep safety in the forefront of everything we do. It's important to me, it's important to the entire command, and it's important to the citizens of Maryland to do this thing right and to make sure that safety is paramount.